your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs. You said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those people,
officers.
Throw them in the jail, 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today?
One reason this question is so significant is that the U.S. military is generally restricted from performing domestic law enforcement functions. That's why debates over troop deployments inside the United States often generate intense scrutiny from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. The answer to Slotkin's question could determine where military support ends and law enforcement authority begins.
It's a yes or no thing, authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man, list it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual, did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so
to...
say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great.
Notice how the discussion shifted from troop deployment to rules of engagement. Historically, one of the biggest concerns surrounding domestic military operations has been ensuring that military personnel remain separate from political disputes. Slotkin is now pressing on whether any authorities have been granted beyond force protection and support functions.
Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay.
This next section references a debate that has followed American administrations for years: how military leaders should respond when civilian leaders propose actions they believe may be inappropriate or legally questionable. Questions about civilian control of the military and military professionalism have been recurring themes throughout U.S. history.
On Iran, I don't think there's a debate. There's like a catfight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
What makes this exchange particularly important is that it goes far beyond a disagreement between a senator and a defense secretary. At its core, this hearing touched on one of the oldest and most sensitive questions in American democracy: what role should the military play inside the United States? Since the country's founding, American leaders have generally tried to maintain a clear distinction between military power and civilian law enforcement. The reason is straightforward. The military is designed to defend the nation, while civilian law enforcement agencies are responsible for maintaining public order and enforcing domestic laws. Whenever those lines appear to blur, lawmakers, legal scholars, and military leaders often become concerned about the long-term implications. That concern helps explain why Senator Slotkin focused so heavily on questions involving detention authority, arrest powers, and the use of force. Whether viewers agree with her conclusions or not, her questions were aimed at understanding exactly where military authority begins and ends in a domestic setting. Those questions have become especially relevant whenever troops are deployed in support of operations occurring inside the United States. Another interesting aspect of this exchange is that both participants appeared to be speaking to different audiences. Slotkin seemed focused on Americans who worry about the possibility of military involvement in domestic political disputes. Hegseth, meanwhile, emphasized public safety, support for law enforcement, and protection of federal operations. As a result, they often appeared to be discussing related issues while emphasizing very different priorities. The hearing also reflects a broader debate that has existed throughout modern American history. During periods of unrest, natural disasters, civil disturbances, or national emergencies, government officials frequently face difficult questions about when military support is appropriate and what limitations should remain in place. Those discussions are rarely simple because they involve balancing security concerns, constitutional protections, public safety, and public confidence in government institutions. One of the most revealing moments came when Slotkin repeatedly sought a direct yes or no answer regarding military authority and the potential use of force. Whether viewers believe she received a satisfactory answer likely depends on what they expected from the hearing in the first place. Some people believe defense officials should provide precise public explanations whenever questions involve constitutional rights. Others argue that military operations often involve legal, operational, and security considerations that make simple answers difficult. The discussion about Secretary Esper was also significant because it raised a broader issue about the relationship between civilian leadership and military leadership. In the American system, civilian leaders ultimately control the military, but military leaders are also expected to provide professional advice and operate within legal and constitutional boundaries. That balance has been debated by policymakers and military historians for generations. The final section of the hearing introduced another major topic, Iran. Although the conversation moved quickly, it highlighted an important lesson learned from previous conflicts. Military operations are often judged not only by their initial success, but also by what happens afterward. Questions about post-conflict planning became central to public debates following Iraq and Afghanistan, and those lessons continue to influence discussions about potential future military actions. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from this hearing is that Americans across the political spectrum generally want two things at the same time. They want security, and they want constitutional protections. The challenge for policymakers is determining how to preserve both when circumstances become tense or politically charged. That's why exchanges like this receive so much attention. They touch on fundamental questions about democracy, military power, government authority, and individual rights. Whether viewers agree more with Slotkin's concerns or Hegseth's responses, the hearing demonstrates how seriously these questions are still debated at the highest levels of government. And because issues involving military authority, civil liberties, and national security rarely disappear from public life, conversations like this are likely to remain part of American politics for years to come. What do you think? Should Congress place stricter limits on how the military can be used during domestic operations, or do current laws already provide enough safeguards? Let us know in the comments.